Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to attract narcissists while other people not so much? Today, I'm going to be talking about a narcissist's thought process to help you figure out how exactly they choose their next victim. And I'm going to share a lot of eye opening insights that might change the way that you view relationships and interacting with people and, I don't know, shatter your worldview. Hopefully not. But it's so good to be acquainted with the truth and the reality on how these things happen. And, you've probably noticed that narcissists will target certain individuals, maybe yourself if you're watching this video, and they don't target other people. And so there are a few things to be aware of on how narcissists will identify and manipulate their next victim. From knowing on a weird unconscious level that you've got vulnerabilities to exploit and then exploiting them to being charming and charismatic and love bombing you to gain your trust, we're going to uncover the strategies that narcissists will use in order to get what they want from other people. If you've ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, or you've been raised by a narcissist or have narcissistic family members, and you're concerned about being a potential target for another narcissist down the line, this video is for you. You're going to learn how to recognize the warning signs and be able to protect yourself from narcissistic abuse and avoid becoming their next victim. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Coach Adriana Bucci, and I empower survivors of narcissistic abuse to heal, set boundaries, and live life on their own terms. I'm a fellow survivor myself, and my own personal healing journey is what inspired me to become a coach and help other people to also heal from narcissistic abuse. And one of the most important things that I learned on my healing journey was that I needed to understand how a narcissist's mind works, because that actually helped my healing journey. Yeah, it was a little disturbing figuring out how a narcissist's mind works, but at the end of the day, it helped me to actually stop blaming myself for the abuse that I went through, because I was conditioned to blame myself. And it also helped me become more self-aware so that I could understand how I was showing up in situations that may have made a narcissist view me as a target. So we're going to talk about all of that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And without further ado, let's dive into it and let's get your shift together. First things first, what are the traits that narcissists are looking for in their potential victims? Number one, if you have empathy, you're probably going to be a target. And now, obviously, having empathy is not a bad trait to have, but it can get bad when we become targets for abuse. And this doesn't mean that you need to turn off your empathy or, stop caring about other people. It really just means that you need to redirect where you are focusing that empathy. And we'll get into all of that. Some other traits that narcissists will look for are if you're vulnerable, if you just had a recent breakup, if you just went through a death of someone that you cared about, if you are going through a hard time at work, if, anything stressful that could potentially be going on in any given person's life, if you are currently going through something like that, and if there's a narcissist around that knows that you're going through something like that, you're probably going to be targeted. And yeah, it sounds as diabolical as it is, because it is, right? People who are going through things in present day, they don't need to be manipulated. They need to get through what they're going through. And then a narcissist will come in like this knight in shining armor and, pretend that they're going to provide a solution and, just be that shoulder to cry on, that person to listen, et cetera, et cetera. And then when they have gained your trust to the point where you're opening up to them and sharing all of your deepest, darkest secrets, all of your vulnerabilities, how you feel, all that kind of stuff, now they have leverage over you. And so that's something to really be aware of. If you're just meeting a new person and you're going through something difficult and they start asking you invasive questions and trying to get all this info out of you, you want to really watch out for that. They'll also target people who have low self-esteem and people-pleasing tendencies and are perfectionists and things like that. And here's the thing, like, you might have heard that narcissists are insecure, and they are. I believe it was in one of Dr. Ramani's workshops that I did a couple of years ago. She said something along the lines of narcissists are the pathologically insecure who are preying on the conventionally insecure. So every person on this planet has insecurities of some sort. Narcissists are so insecure to the point that they have to go out of their way to ruin somebody else in order to feel better about themselves. So this is just something to really be aware of, that, just because you have insecurities or low self-esteem or anything like that, it doesn't mean that you're flawed. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means you've probably been through some trauma and need to learn how to release some of those repressed emotions so you can start rebuilding your confidence on a solid foundation. And that's a whole coaching program, so I'm not even going to get into that too much, but just to be aware of the traits that narcissists will look out for. They will also target people who come from narcissistic families, and they'll know, because the abuse is going to be so normalized in your brain that you're not going to think that it's abnormal once they start devaluing you after the love bombing has taken place. And you're more likely to stick around because chances are you might believe that this is just how people are. I used to believe that. I was raised by a narcissistic mother, and I had so many narcissistic ex-boyfriends, more than I'm proud to admit of. And I just thought the way they treated me was normal, because this is literally the type of behavior that I was exposed to for my whole life. Narcissists will also target people who come from really happy families. And that's because people who are from super happy families are taught that, everyone's doing their best. The world's a beautiful place. Give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and like happy, happy, joy, joy, which there's nothing wrong with that. But again, a little bit misguided sometimes, because, the world's not a beautiful place. There's good that exists, there is bad that exists, and we just have to stay grounded in reality. So pretty much anybody can be targeted by a narcissist. It's not an intelligence thing. It's not like that you're dumb and that's why you got targeted. Like, they will target anybody, like people with PhDs, people who are extremely smart, people who know what they're doing, all that. Like, you don't have to be dumb in order to get targeted by a narcissist. And they will target you if you have empathy. That is like the main thing to understand. And they'll target your empathy by appealing to your empathy. So covert narcissists, for example, these are the more dangerous ones to look out for, because an overt narcissist, it's more obvious that they're a narcissist. I think I need to make a video about covert narcissists specifically. So let me know in the comments if you want to see a video specifically on covert narcissists. But for the point of this video, a covert narcissist will appeal to your empathy. So they might love bomb you when they're in like victim mode. So they'll open up to you about this horrible thing they just went through, and that appeals to your empathy because you start feeling sorry for them. And then when you feel sorry for them, they know that the love bombing worked, and they kind of put you on this like unspoken pedestal where like you can help them get through this sort of thing. And that's sort of how the dynamic will start. And of course, once they gain your trust, we go into the devaluation stage. So I did recently upload a video about the cycle of abuse. So wherever you see it up here, feel free to give that a watch if you haven't already. And the main point really is that if you've got empathy, you're probably going to be targeted by a narcissist. Like, you don't have to have like this unspeakable trauma. Of course, like people who do have that kind of trauma, we are even easier to target because obviously, like, we've been through all that kind of stuff. And if we haven't healed from it, even better for the narcissist, because we're not going to know the difference of someone manipulating us versus love, because if we've been through narcissistic abuse, that's really all we know. And so the other problem when you're a person with empathy, and again, it's the world needs more people with empathy at the end of the day. So don't think that you need to magically turn off your empathy, because like if you've got it, it's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of redirecting that empathy. And so when you have empathy, chances also are that you're the type of person who does not want to make another person feel pain or, hurt or anything because of your words or actions. And so this is why narcissists love people with empathy, because they know that they can guilt trip you. And narcissists will use guilt, shame, and fear. I call them the three musketeers. I tell all my clients these are the emotions to watch out for, because anybody in those emotional states is going to be easier to control. So when you have empathy and you breathe in the wrong direction, narcissists get mad over everything. They'll guilt trip you about it. And instead of, because we don't know what to do with our emotions, right? And here's just like the spoiler alert. You're supposed to process your emotions and get the message from the emotion and gain clarity. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, you are in survival mode and you have empathy and you're feeling guilty about whatever the narcissist is saying that you did wrong and caused them all of this hardship and pain. And so you start feeling guilty and you start repressing that guilt because we don't know what to do with our emotions. So you're more likely to push that guilt down and make a decision that is going to be in the narcissist's best interests and not yours. So let's say you're trying to set a boundary. That's another huge example. Let's say you have a narcissistic mother. You want to go low contact or no contact with her, but now she's putting you on a guilt trip and, she's getting older. How could you do this to your mother? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. After all I did for you, after all the sacrifices, this, that, and the other. That is a guilt trip that is literally meant to make you feel guilty because people who feel guilty are easier to control. And when you don't know what to do with that guilt, you're going to repress it and you're going to take an action to make that guilt go away. Because the first thing we want to do when we're feeling guilty is to not feel guilty anymore. So the fastest way to do that is to just do whatever the narcissist wants. So chances are you're not going to go low contact or no contact. You're just going to increase contact. You're going to decide that what my narcissistic mother is telling me about myself makes me out to be so horrible. And I guess it's true. And I'm such a horrible person. And I just need to, spend more time with my mother because what if she dies one day and all that kind of stuff? It just becomes this whole rabbit hole. And so somebody who doesn't have empathy, right? So like the narcs of this world and, worse than narcs out there, like the sociopaths, the psychopaths, etc., like they're not going to feel guilty when someone's like putting them through a guilt trip, and they're not a fun target for a narcissist, but they'll be buddy buddy with each other and they'll try to outnarc each other, and sometimes they'll like try to compete for like the same target, but like I think that's a different story. But regardless, they're not going to target people like them because they know that they're not going to get supply, right? They're going to maybe get an enabler or an ally or a flying monkey out of another narcissist that they might be targeting, but they're going to be doing it to each other. They're not genuinely hurt by what the other person's saying. They are just really just creating a fire just for the hell of it because that's entertaining for them. They get their jollies out of seeing other people suffer. That is what supply is all about. And I think I'm going to have to make a video about narcissistic supply as well. And so if you were feeling the guilt and processing it, right, you would know like, okay, my narcissistic mother is putting me on a guilt trip. I am allowed to go no contact. She's done nothing but abuse me my whole life. And I'm out. I'm done. Like I've had enough. I've done this for enough decades of my life. This is it. And to have that confidence with those statements, you have to process the guilt, because it's inevitable that the narcissist is going to guilt trip you because they are appealing to your empathy. And when you feel guilty, you are not going to do what's right for you. You're going to do what the other person wants. So the key is really to allow yourself to feel and process that guilt so you can release it, recognize the guilt trip in real time, and not fall for the trap. And then you're redirecting your empathy towards yourself, because the person who should be feeling guilty is your narcissistic mother or whoever the narcissist in your life is for abusing you, but they're not going to take accountability because feeling guilty would require them to self-reflect and do better next time, which they're never going to do. But that's what they're conditioning you to do. So you're constantly focusing on how bad you are and how there's all these things that are wrong with you because that's what this person said. But this isn't just any person. This is somebody who has made you buy in to their lies, and they have gained your trust through their lies and manipulation so that you take what they say to heart because you have empathy and you don't want them to hurt because of you. So that is like really the main number one trait that anybody who would get targeted by a narcissist would have, is just having empathy. And again, this does not mean that it's bad to have empathy. It's great to have empathy. Like the world, like I've said multiple times already, needs more people with empathy. So it's so important to recognize, like, when you're feeling sorry for the narcissist, like, why are you feeling sorry for them? Where are those? Get curious about those emotions. It's not about making the emotions right or wrong. It's about getting curious about them, understanding what they're trying to say to you. And then that's how you're going to gain clarity. And spoiler alert, when you start actually getting curious about guilt, for example, your rational brain is going to come through and help you recognize that, wait a minute, this was never your guilt to carry. This is just a manipulation tactic, but you have to actually do the work in order to get to that point. And if guilt is something that you struggle with and you want to dive deeper into it, I have a 5-day guilt detox. It's only $7. It's a mini course. It's going to be super transformational for you. And it's going to help you really understand what to do with that guilt, how to process it, and you'll be able to start catching these guilt tactics and being able to redirect your empathy towards yourself and your healing journey rather than towards the narcissist who does not deserve your empathy because they're just on a mission to destroy you. And of course, it kind of goes without saying for the other people that they target who have low self-esteem, people-pleasing tendencies, all that kind of stuff, you probably have empathy too. And these traits are conditioned responses to trauma. So chances are you've already been through narcissistic abuse. They can sense it. They know if you've been abused, and they know that you'll believe that it's normal behavior when they keep abusing you and kind of repeating that cycle that you're very used to, unfortunately. And so this is where the inner work comes into play. So I would encourage you to journal, pen, paper, 20-minute timer. This is the type of journaling that I learned on my healing journey from the Curable app, Dr. Sarno, Nicole Sachs Journal Speak, absolutely transformational. Pen, paper, 20-minute timer. Vomit the thoughts on your brain onto the paper. And it's so, you can do this literally when you are feeling guilty or when you are feeling like, the narcissist is trying to manipulate you, or you feel, even if the narcissist isn't right there with you, and like, don't journal in front of the narcissist, please. Like, that's like the worst idea. But anything where, maybe you're reminiscing on something that happened a few years ago with the narc in your life and you're feeling bad about it or whatever, journal about it, see where it takes you, because the more that you start doing this exercise, the more that you're going to start gaining clarity. And so anyways, 20-minute timer, vomit the thoughts on your brain onto the paper. And then as soon as the timer is done, you destroy the paper, rip it up, get rid of it, burn it if you can do so safely, whatever works for you. And then notice what's going on in your body. And this is really like the starting points of the emotional work. And you're going to do it in baby steps, one day at a time. And the more that you start getting in touch with your own emotions and healing, the easier it's going to be to spot and recognize emotional manipulation when a narcissist is trying to get supply from you. Because the more that you don't do the work, the more that you don't show up for yourself, the more that you have all of these repressed emotions stuck in your mind-body system, the more confused you're going to be. And narcissists, again, love to confuse their targets. If you are confused, you are being abused. So keep that in mind. Confusion is a sign of repressed emotions and manipulation. And once you start processing those emotions, that confusion is going to go away because you're going to recognize the manipulation, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to recognize it happening in real time, but you have to actually do the work to get to that point. And if you want to take things like 5,000 steps further, check out the link in the description. You can submit an application for my bulletproof group coaching program, or you can join my affordable community membership for less than $1 per day. And that is also at the link in the description if you are interested. And so to kind of close off this video, you were targeted by a narcissist, not because there's, something wrong with you, but because there's so much right with you. And narcissists want to literally like diminish your light at the end of the day. And the more that you start directing your empathy towards yourself and what you've been through, which is obviously easier said than done because you've been so conditioned to direct your empathy towards your abuser. And that's what they want you to do, because that keeps you stuck with them longer because you're confused. And that's why doing that inner work is going to help you to redirect that empathy towards the right places, not only towards yourself, but like other things that are important to you, not this person who's on a mission to destroy you. And it's not an overnight process. It's baby steps, one day at a time. And, it's worth it at the end of the day, obviously, but it's not easy. But nothing that's worth having comes easy, does it? Right? Like, not to sound cliche, but sometimes we have to put ourselves through our healing journeys because there's no other option. Another thing to understand with empathy is that in social settings and stuff like that, narcissists are kind of on a lookout for vulnerability, and they can sense if somebody seems anxious or insecure, and they're going to try to potentially charm you and flatter you and, pretend that they care about you in order to hook you in during those early stages. And especially if you're going through something like prime target right there. They're kind of like always scanning for like a new source of supply, and they will be taking these mental notes when they're out and about and engaging with people to kind of figure out who's going to fall more easily for their charming nature and, give them that sort of reciprocation that they're seeking and validation that the charm is working. So you have to really be aware of that if you are vulnerable and they are being charming, like this is a huge red flag and you're going to be a target. Really, just to sum things up, narcissists will go after people who have empathy, low self esteem, people pleasers, stuff like that. And they will use their manipulation tactics to keep their targets trapped and stuck and appeal to your empathy and keep you around for as long as possible. The more that you're aware of who they target, why they target people with these certain qualities, and what kind of tactics they're going to use in order to exploit those vulnerabilities and qualities of yours, the more protected you're going to be and the more aware you're going to be of what is happening in the moment. Thanks so much for tuning into today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to drop your comments underneath this video on the stories that you've been through with narcissists targeting you, and feel free to make any suggestions for other videos you'd like to see in the future. See you next time. Bye.